Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Our good friend Grant Turner is in Paris. If you follow him on social media, he is posting his food of the day, which is always entertaining. He's also posting pictures of all the athletes he is with from multiple sports. GT covers multiple sports for APS and Nike. He is showing all the different shoes and everything else. But it doesn't matter that he's not with us today, because we have our sitting Greco-Roman and foreign name pronunciation expert, Mark Ostrander, with us. Good morning, sir.
Why would you say that, David?
Good morning, Marco. How are you?
Hi, David. I'm not very happy with Grant right now. He could have found a way to get on this podcast and help me with Greco, because I'm lost in Greco.
We're going to muddle through. You know, I was pretty good in Greco back in the day. So,
okay, this will be fun.
All right. Well, let's first start off with congratulations formally. This has been the case for a while, but USA Wrestling qualified 16 of the 18 weight classes between men's freestyle, men's Greco-Roman, and women's freestyle. All 12 in the freestyle disciplines, and 4 of the 6 with Kamal getting in. Even without Kamal, 15 of 18 is really impressive. 16 of 18 is massively impressive. The only 2 weights we didn't qualify were 60 and 67 in Greco-Roman. And it's just a big deal, man. You know, like, I assume you've been watching a lot of Olympics this last week.
I have watched some, yes.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things that are fascinating. Number one is you become like in your mind, an expert on these sports, like every 4 years. Like, I was watching rugby, and like my uncle plays rugby or played rugby. And like when they run it into the end zone, it's called a try, a TRY, but it's not a touchdown. And then if you run through the post, it's worth different. You get basically an extra point, but it's worth 2 points. So I don't know if you saw the end of that rugby game for the United States.
I did.
Okay, so people, if you don't watch the Olympics, you need to go watch this clip. It's freaking amazing. It's for the bronze medal. Okay. America's doing really well. We don't have the most gold medals so far. We have the most medals by far, but they're in the bronze medal match and they're losing by 5 points, I think with like 30 seconds left. And rugby, they basically pass the ball sideways and they get tackled, and then they put the ball on the ground behind them, and the next person takes it. And it's a ton of running, and it's a ton of tackling. It's a very physical sport, but it's kind of like 4th and 1 in football, where if you break through the initial line, you know, everybody's at the line of scrimmage. So this girl breaks like a tackle and a half and just peels out 85 yards to crosses the line as time expires, but you know, it's like the play started.
Sure.
Ties the game, kicks the extra point or the 2-pointer, and I apologize to any of our rugby fans. I don't know the name of that kick, but they win the bronze medal. And they got a $4 million injection into that program. So there are life-changing things happening over there. You know, Simone Biles nicknamed that team the Golden Girls because they're the oldest team, I think, since 1952. They only have one teenager. Like, Simone Biles is 27 years old. Like, that is young in life and ancient in gymnastics. So just in swimming, I almost did a post. I was like, I want to dominate chicken wings like Katie Ledecky dominates the 1500.
That to me. You know, they were talking about who's the greatest swimmer of all time, and you know, you have to look at
Phelps
for sure with 23 medals. But the distance that Katie Ledecky was able to beat these people year in and year out in this 1500 is just totally amazing. It's half a pool. It is half a pool she won by.
Yeah, maybe more. But yeah, and I think she has the top 18 times, like, in the history of the world.
It was 19 going into that race, and she just broke the Olympic record. So now it's the top
20
now. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
It is amazing. And
Yeah.
she still has the 800, which she's got the world record in. She's favored in that to do later on this week.
Somebody posted a video of her. She's wearing a snorkel, and she put a glass of chocolate milk on the top of her head and swam across. And that's how still, she had to do it that so she didn't have to turn her head to breathe. Okay. But that's how perfect her form is. And then I think it's Rowdy Gaines is the color commentator for swimming. And they posted her splits. And it was, they're all like 31.2, 31.1, 30.9, like just bang, 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 bang. I mean, just so freaking consistent. And there's like 1% of the world that could swim 50 meters, one lane with the dive in like under 32 seconds. So we're just seeing greatness at so many levels. And the only good thing about the pandemic is we get to see it now twice in 3 years instead of 4 years.
Yep.
So anything else that stuck out to you about the Olympics besides what we talked about?
Oh, not really. I mean, there's things that are going on over there that have gone on for years, obviously. There's some people that were really upset with the opening ceremonies. So
yeah, we can't we're not going to even
I
talk.
understand, but I'm just saying there's just things that go on. I think the competition's been phenomenal. I think Grant's fencing team that he also works with had 2 females in the finals, 1 gold and silver. And I watched that for the first time, I think, in my life. And it was kind of fun to watch.
I've been watching a lot of judo.
I have not seen much judo
You need
yet.
to watch some judo if you can. Like judo is awesome. I grew up in judo with my dad. And so a lot of the terms that there's a lot of the techniques that have Japanese names to them. And so like those were words I grew up with. And so it's fun to hear those words again. I got my parents a smart TV, put all the subscriptions on there, taking it over to them tomorrow. It was it's a late Father's Day delivery gift, putting Peacock on there, putting all his wrestling subscriptions on there. So Papa Ron's going to be hooked up for the next week. Wrestling starts Monday. We're recording this on Thursday. Sometimes this pod doesn't go up immediately. Gary Abbott wears a ton of hats in this world. And right now he's the one responsible for screening this. So making sure that everything is copacetic before we go up. All right, Mark, let's talk about women's freestyle.
Okay.
So first of all, Kennedy Blades goes to Iowa. Macy Kilty goes to Iowa. The Kennedy Blades thing you could see coming. Sunkissed Kids is, I think everyone knows this, is officially no longer sponsoring athletes after the Olympics. I heard somebody say they're going to continue to sponsor certain athletes. Everything I've heard, and I'm fairly close to some people out there, that's not true. And I'm pretty sure that's not true, or else Kennedy Blades probably would have stayed. Iowa makes sense. Kennedy's an Izzy style athlete. Izzy Martinez is actually out there with her at the Olympics, and he's close to the Iowa program. He had a lot to do with Real Woods getting there, so makes a lot of sense. Macy Kilty, Olympic alternate to Kayla Miracle. So you have to imagine these 2 young ladies are going to do pretty good in college wrestling.
Yeah, it's a big get for the University of Iowa. And it's going to be fun to watch these young ladies actually compete at the NCAA level too. So it's just more opportunity for us to get to watch them wrestle.
For sure. Iowa's building things the right way there. So congratulations to Clarissa and Gary Mayab. So America goes on, we start on Monday, and Amita Loris first. But I think the way to go, let's first talk about, so you and I will watch other people's podcasts just to make sure we're not repeating anything or saying exactly the same way, unless it's how we feel. So Flo reported that the weigh-ins are going to be different at the Olympics. And we talked off air and you said you saw that, but there's going to be a bigger gap. Essentially, they're weighing in at the Olympic Village as opposed to the venue.
Yep.
And so then there's travel. So I think what is interesting about that is there's a bigger gap. And they said, depending on the day, it's somewhere between 4 and 7, 4 and 8 hours, as opposed to 90 minutes or 2 hours. So I think we get very myopic and say, hey, that's great for the Americans cutting a lot of weight. Primarily, I think Amita's cutting, and I could be wrong, but she came from 72 to 68. We know Brooks is big. We know Rutherford is big for the weight classes. But it helps everybody. So it's going to cut weight hard. It's not like
sure.
And for the athletes we have that may not be cutting as hard, it's potentially a disadvantage. Like Spencer Lee getting Stevan Misic off the scale, I would think the bigger the gap between weigh-in and wrestling, the more advantageous for Misic. Would you agree with that sentence?
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So we're going to be on both sides of it, like every country in the world, unless one country has nobody cutting or one country has everybody cutting like crazy. And I don't mean to imply Spencer Lee's just walking around at 124 pounds. It's just some people are cutting harder than others to make the weight class. So that's a thing.
But if you look on the opposite side of that, David, these guys are so finely tuned when it comes to their training process and how they do things, because they've done it over and over again, and they've got it figured out to where they feel like they're at their peak. That extra 3 or 4 hours of hydrating and eating can make a difference on your performance out there. You can be a little bit more sluggish if you've had too much time and you've eaten too much or drank too much compared to what you're used to with that 2 hours. So it could go either way, to be honest with you.
I guess. I mean, I think that these people, and when I say these people, the world of wrestling, okay, not the United States, like every country in the world, first of all, they've known this schedule, okay? So I think it's not like it's a curveball for anybody. And then second of all, everybody knows nutritional cycles and training cycles and peaking and resting and relaxing and all these things to the nth degree. Like, people didn't just hop off the turnip truck and show up for the Olympics, So I think the main thing is, it's kind of like you watch UFC and they have like 36-hour weigh-ins, right? Like the fight Saturday night, they're weighing at like 9 or 10 o'clock on Friday morning.
Yep.
And more people miss weight doing that than wrestling, because like, well, I can cut 20 pounds. Like, I don't want to suffer for a week. I just want to suffer really hard for a day. Okay. And that night, trying to sleep. Right. And so I think, if anything, in general, people will just be stronger. Like they can get a little more food in them, a little more time to digest, a little more fluids in them. So, it's not like, like high school weigh-ins, like basically you just get down to weight. You're not cutting water or anything. Like maybe you're a little parched, but then you get water or whatever sports electrolyte drink you want to put in you. I'm not going to name a name and get us. We want to get paid if we're going to sponsor somebody, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. So Anyway, all right. So every major source is putting out previews, and the mat.com, which is USA Wrestling, has a ton of these that are weight by weight. I'm going to use Flows just because they have them all like one after the other. Okay. So people can, if you're watching, but Intermat, Flow, USA Wrestling, which is the mat.com, which is, where they put our podcast as well, and newsletter, all that kind of stuff. So everybody's got stuff. So if you see here, there's the picture of the team along with Steiner and Steve Silver. So 50 kilograms for us is Sarah Hildebrand. I'm going to jump around here. She's on August 6th and 7th. So if I slide down to the bottom here to where the seeds are, Well, I don't have the seeds on here. Seeds are on a different one. But Hildebrand is the 6th seed, okay? The seeds are Suzaki is 1, Dolgorov is 2, Feng, Demron. I was going to have you pronounce all these, Mark, but anyway. So Suzaki's the favorite, but the 2 and 3 and the 7 are all really, really good, okay? So Hildebrand is actually on the harder side of the bracket to make the finals, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
She's also medaled in pretty much everything. So if you go back to, so here's the quad, 2020 Olympics through 23 Worlds, and Hildebrand has been bronze, silver, bronze, bronze. Okay, and if people have never seen this, there's 2 bronze medals and 2 5th-place medals. So the person listed above her as the other bronze did not place higher than her, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
So Suzaki has won it every year except the year Yashimoto won it. And, so Japan has won this weight class, which you're going to see a lot of as we go through this. So Hildebrand, world-class leg lace, really good with length, controlling distance. She's another one that cuts a lot of weight. Okay, I mean, she's tall for 50 kgs, which is 110. So I think she's going to have a tough path to the finals, but I feel like just her level of consistency, I don't think the moment is going to be too big for her, Mark. I mean, she's done this at world and Olympic level, medaled. I feel like she's probably going to medal again.
Yeah, I think she's got a really good shot at least getting to the bronze. I think she can win that 3 against 6 matchup that she will have. And then that puts her in the semis, and then she's going to be wrestling for, chance for bronze from there. So I'm not sure she can win that against the number 2 seed. I think that's a tough ask, but I think she's good enough to do it. So, yeah. I think it's a good place for her to be in. I mean, I would have obviously loved to see her at the 5 seed. I think that would have been a perfect position. But it's always nice to have that opportunity in the finals too. So see what happens.
Yeah. So the other thing is, if you're not following USA Wrestling on social media, you probably should be. They're doing a lot of really cool behind the scenes and funny stuff. And it feels like that just in general, they're still having fun with it. Like, people are not locked down. I know they were training in Normandy for a while. I talked to Pritz, who's over there with Kayla and Helen, and he's not coaching Dom now because she went to Beaver Dam. She's with Nate Engel, but he's coached her a bunch. And then obviously Blades is in the Arizona State Sunkist room. So,
Yep.
So there's just a lot of positive energy over there, and I think deservedly so. They're just not getting too wound up too early, right? And so it's good to see that. All right, so Dom Parrish, 2022 world champ, did not medal in 53 kgs, which is the next weight, 116.6. She's going to be on August 7th and 8th. So let's go through the seeds real quick. So this is Ecuador's 1, Sweden's 2, Japan's 3, India's 4, Greece 5, Nigeria 6, China 7. And then somebody like Dom is going to get drawn in, which is kind of crazy. So she didn't place at 23 Worlds, but in 2024, she I won't say won the pans because they didn't wrestle the finals, but she qualified the weight and she won the Poland Open, and she's made 3 U23 teams along the way. So if you look at the gold medal favorite here, it says Fujinami might be the best pound-for-pound wrestler in the world. And this is what's crazy about Olympic wrestling, Mark, is like the seeds, because of these formulas, and there's no better way to do it. Well, I shouldn't say there's no better way to do it. It's the best it's ever been. There might be a better way, but at least they're not blind drawing and unweighted brackets and all that stuff. So that's a bad sentence on my part. I walked that back. But 9 matches at the Senior World Championships, 8 shutout techs, 1 fall. But they say, and this is Kyle Klingman, who's very, very detail oriented. Guzman from Ecuador in the 2023 quarterfinals got to her feet, started out 7-0, and then got ran down 16-7 before she got pinned. But Fujinami's the gigantic favorite of this. They've got her results there. So here's the quad. Again, it's been Japan, then Dom Parrish, which was a huge upset, and then Fujinami again. So Jakara's been at this weight here previously for America. That had to be a massive cut for her. So she was one of those people that was perfect at 55 and that's the in-between weight of 53 and 57, if you're not familiar with the Olympic weight classes. I feel like Parrish, she's made the run, right? Anytime you've won a world title, you can do it. And you can do it. It's not like you think you can do it. You hope you can do it. It's like, it's on the resume, bro. I did it. So I think it feels like she's a little draw dependent, right? Like, I'd love to see her get, honestly, Fujinami, like right away, or draw the 8 seed, right? And you got to win that first round match because you're going to be relying on a home run.
Yep.
Otherwise, right? Or not, I'm sorry, because Fujinami's the 3 seed, excuse me, so the 6 seed.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'd like to see her in that quarter, in between 6 and 3, obviously, somewhere in that gap.
Or the second quarter bracket where she could make a run out, because those 4 or 5 seeds are not on paper. And anyway, and this bracket, people say this stuff a lot, Mark, like on any given day, anybody can beat anybody. But if you've beaten me 12 times in a row, it's a pretty big upset if I beat you. Fujinami losing would be a massive upset. Just, like Satiev or like John Smith, those kind of people, when they were running through people, right? So it feels like if she can get either Fujinami right away, okay, or get in the top half of the bracket, the second quarter bracket, and can navigate the 4 or 5 seeds, then she'd probably have the Ecuadorian, and she's going to be in a medal match one way or another. She's either going to win and be in the finals or lose and be in the bronze medal match. Just to remind people one more time how backside wrestling works at the Olympics, it's a 16-person bracket, okay? So let's just say for the sake of clarity, the 1 and 2 seeds make the finals. And they don't seed to 16, but we know how this works. One would have wrestled 16, then 8, then 4, okay? The way it works is 16 wrestles 8 on the backside, and the winner of that, which would normally be 8 wrestles 4, and the winner, that's the bronze medalist. So you just don't want to get knocked out, and then your person gets knocked out. That's an obvious sentence, but there's 4 people alive on each side of the bracket, and one of them's in the finals.
Yeah.
So the same on the bottom. 2 would beat 15, then 7, then 3. So 15 would wrestle 7, winner would wrestle 3. So I'm a huge Dom Parrish fan. I've had a chance to interview her like right after events. She's a great combination of really bubbly and well-spoken and smart, really great, high energy, contagious, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm super homer here, but I think she can get into the bronze medal match. Obviously rooting for her to pull the upset and win the gold, but I feel like her medaling is not out of the question at all.
Yeah. I think she has a real opportunity, and I think she's very draw dependent on if she can get to the top half of the bracket, I think she has a shot at making the finals, because I just don't think it's as quality there as it is in the lower half of the bracket. anytime you get Japan, you already know how great they are as a country, and what they've done for women's wrestling is second to none. You know, they say we're the second best country in women's wrestling. Well, we got a lot of climbing to do to catch Japan. That's how great they are. They're just phenomenal. So it would be nice to be able to have a shot in the finals with her.
Yep. On the other hand, America pretty clearly has been number 2 consistently. It's not like they placed second once. Okay, we go to 57, Helen Maroulis. 57 is the same weight class as Spencer Lee for people that are kind of connecting those things. She goes on August 8 or 9. So we make no money off of this, but you should probably get a Peacock subscription if you want to watch a lot of the wrestling. And like any of us that have watched wrestling before, they're only going to put basically the gold medal matches, maybe an American semi match on USA or CNBC or MSNBC or E, you know, and then the finals may be on NBC. But if you just want to be able to watch everything, get your subscription. So Sakurai is the favorite, but hardly a lock, again, according to Klingman. Now, what I like about this is he breaks down, like, she's not a scoring machine like a lot of the other teammates from the Japanese team. So Helen is so diverse in her attacks, Mark. I mean, she can attack legs from space, really good in go-behinds, obviously, really good in 2-on-1, good reaper inside-out steps, super creative. And she's also talked about counting down, like this is her last tournament, that kind of thing. That can go either way, right? Like either the person's like, okay, you know, like that always concerns me in MMA because, you know, it feels like it's an easier way out. But sometimes in wrestling, you see people and they end their careers on top and they either they announced it or they knew it and they just completely sell out because they're like, okay, like 23 days left. I'm going to make this the best 23rd day in the world that I can. And she probably has the most significant win in the history of women's wrestling for the United States, winning the Olympics, you know, as a massive underdog back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, here's the book here, 32 years old, 11 senior world championships, first woman to make 3 Olympic teams, 2016, first American to win gold, 2021, first to win multiple medals as a bronze medalist. So 25 years of wrestling for her. She beat Yoshida in 2016, as we talked about, who was a 16-time world and Olympic champion. It's pretty crazy. They have her whole track record here. So just, I mean, her track record from 2011 on is 5th, 2nd, 7th, 3rd, 1st, 21st with the concussion, sat out the next year, 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Her career is very Kyle Snyder-ish with a probably more historical win, like all-time win over Yoshida. I'm super biased, but I feel like Helen can do it. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think she's gonna have a great opportunity to be in the finals. What can happen there? It's just, you know, it's anybody's guess, but she's actually been pretty much the GOAT of American wrestling for the females. Her longevity has been phenomenal. She does have, I think, the greatest win in women's wrestling when she took out, you know,
Yoshida.
Yep, Yoshida. So, you know, I would love to see her go out on top, David.
Now, her harder match, Mark, will be in the semis if everything holds because she's the 5 seed, so she'd have Yoshida in the semis.
Okay.
So it's also pretty imperative for her to make the semis.
Yes, agreed.
Because I think if she were to get upset, anybody that beats Helen before Yoshida would not be a favorite against, not Yoshida, Sakurai.
Yes.
Sorry, some of the past. Sakurai is the 1 seed. So if you were betting, it's a heavy bet that Maroulis and Sakurai wrestle in the sem. So if somebody were to upset either one of, I mean, the best thing for Helen would be for Sakurai to get upset, and then her to be able to make the final without having to wrestle her. So,
have they wrestled before, David? Do you know?
I think they have. This is where GT being here would. She lost to Sakurai in the finals of the World's 3-0.
Okay.
In 22. So, I mean, you know how important. I know you're not a big freestyle Greco guy, but keeping it close keeps you in the match. Scoring first is huge in any form of really any sport in the world. And so I think for Helen, like if she gets to Sakurai, really important to control the center first, right? Even if you lose the shot clock point in the second period and it's a 1-1 match, because a lot of times they'll go third shot clock and they usually go red, blue, red. They alternate. So I think she just has to do a really good job of standing ground, because people with 2-on-1s and underhooks and things like that don't shoot a lot, they're really good heavy feet, holding base, making you parry off of them, vice versa. So just a little bit of thought there. Okay, 62 kgs, Kayla Miracle. So 2 world silver medals, the favorite. So this is interesting. Kyrgyzstan is the favorite here. Best quad of any wrestler since winning the silver. She won world titles in 19, 21, 23, and a 2017 bronze. And according to Kyle, at least half the field is legitimate shot at gold. So here are the results of, if you're watching, and again, this is so they've done a great job of spreadsheeting everything from 19 to 23. And I think what you see here is there's not a ton of consistency, not like some of the other weight classes where there was a dominant athlete that was there every time. So Miracle she medaled in 21. So she had a 14-10 loss recently to Mongolia at the Budapest tournament. She won her first single senior level medal in 21, falling in the finals. And then in 23, at 22, she silver medal. In 23, she lost in the second round. Because she didn't qualify the weight at the World, she had to go through Pan Ams. And that was where she had to have the wrestle off with Kilty first, because Kilty was at the non-Olympic weight.
Yep.
Came to meet her. She beat Kilty to be the Pan Am rep, made the finals, and then had to wrestle Kilty at trials, which were some barn burner matches. So here's her placings between cadets, juniors, U23s. So senior since 2019, she's gone 8th, 12th, 2nd, 14th. So if we go look at the seeds, let me see if they have this on here on the USA Wrestling site. Otherwise, we might have to just hop around. But it feels like, again, Miracle's done it. I'm super biased because I've met her. Pritz invited them one time when I was in Arizona with literally my family to watch the UFC. It could not be a nicer human being. Like, you would not know she can rip people's heads off for a living. So, again, she feels a little Dom Parrish-y, right? Like, could make a run in the right spot in the bracket and has done it before, making the finals. So, and I know she's super comfortable with Pritz in the corner, and I know that they're very good at game planning matches. I think the interesting thing here is they don't really draw all these weight classes. Like, the brackets are still not drawn. I mean, I'm sure people know that, or we'd be talking about the brackets.
Sure.
They haven't drawn the brackets for any weight class yet.
Yeah, I guess my opinion on Miracle right now is that I've watched her for a few years now because I got to meet her in Pittsburgh, I think we were at when we did the nationals, and they had that event there. Or was that Detroit?
Michigan.
Michigan and Detroit. So when she opens up, David, and wrestles, she's really, really good. She's got all kinds of offense. But there's times that she wrestles defensively, and I wasn't near as impressed with her defensive skills compared to her offensive skills. And when she wrestled at the Pan Ams to qualify the weight for the Americans, she really opened up, and she did some really good things early and got leads, and then sat on them a little bit, but she was able to win those matches. And I think if she can open up here at the Olympics, I think she has a shot at placing. I really do.
You bring up something that's really interesting, and I talked to Eric Larkin about this the other day, about when you shut it down. Like if you're winning by 1 or winning by 2, how early you're winning by 4. I talked to a coach of an athlete who made a world team, and he said, my athlete's better losing by 1 with a minute left than winning by 1 with a minute left. Because like they shut down and it's not good, and they're probably going to get beat, where if they got to get 1, they're better off. Like that's when they're at their best.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's also sort of counterintuitive, right? Like you'd like to be in the lead. Like I watch a lot of different sports, and I kind of always just put it like, which side would I rather be? Right? Like maybe in basketball, teams losing by 1, but it looks like the shot clock's going to be where they're going to get 2 possessions and the other team's going to get 1.
Yeah. Or
maybe in hockey, you're losing, but you have a 2-man advantage. So you're probably going to score, and then you're still going to have a 1-man advantage. Okay, there's just different sports like that, right? So I think that's such a psychological thing, and if somebody can make that adjustment correctly, and I also think you have to have specific tactics, right? Like you're trying to get to an underhook, you're trying to get to a 2-on-1. I think the worst place to be losing in freestyle or winning in freestyle wrestling is out in space against somebody with really good level changes and fakes, because you're always off the back foot. You're always hopping around. I'm moving over here like I'm wrestling or something, but like it's like a dance, and you're following, you're not leading. And then you can get hit for negative wrestling. And then that makes it worse, because like a lot of times that caution in 1 could tie the match, and then you'd be losing on criteria depending on the scoring. Or it's just a lot of different things can go wrong, or you go to the edge and you can get 1 caution 1. And now, like there's just a bunch of ways where it can go. And so one time I want to do a podcast on a mat chat of getting the best coaches together. I don't know how much secret sauce they would give us, but talk about managing things like that, because I think it'd be fascinating.
Sure.
So, all right, 68 kilograms. Amita Lore. So, Mark, she's pretty good at wrestling. She's won a few things here. This article is great because it points out how much she's won. In 2021, she won U17 and U20. Then she won U20, U23, and seniors in 22, and U20, U23, and senior in 23. She's the only American to accomplish that feat twice. She joined Adeline Gray, Helen Maroulis, Trish Saunders, Mensa Stock, and Christy Davis as the only women to win multiple World Olympic titles. Her last loss was a 3-1 semifinal to Japan's Naka at the 2019 Cadet Worlds. Since then, she's dominated. Closest match was 3-2 semifinal over Furiichi at the 2022 Senior Worlds. Great quote: winning 8 world titles means I'm probably doing something right. It's hard to believe I've won that many. I just keep going from one competition to the next, one match at a time, doing my very best. Here we are. And if you look at this chart, this is a career, Mark. Like, if this was your career, this is amazing. And the other thing was, she was so young that she missed the weigh-ins. So here, her career has just begun in 2020 trials. Since her January 1, 2004 birthday left her a day shy of the cutoff, she wasn't on to wrestle in the trials. So, by the way, she's 20 years old.
Yeah.
She's 20 and a half.
She's our favorite. I mean, I think she has by far the best shot at winning a gold medal at the Olympics. I would say she is the favorite to win it. But she's going to be drawn in because she was at a non-Olympic weight. So going to be interesting. I don't think anybody wants her on their side of the bracket. I'll guarantee you that.
Yes. So I like the fact you're jumping on this stuff, man. So yes, correct. Like she is going to be drawn in because she's done all of her damage at 72 kgs. It was interesting. You know, I know there was talk with USA Wrestling because she was at 72. Is she going to have to go up or down? Is she going to go up into the Adeline Gray, Kennedy Blades weight class or down where Mensa Stock was? But when Mensa Stock retired, it's like, hey, the best lineup is we get Allure and Gray / Blades in the lineup.
Yep.
You know, best chance for medals, right?
Yep.
So she's been posting a ton on social media. She is beyond leaned out, bro. Like just leaned out. So I'm excited. I just like watching her wrestle. Like,
who's her toughest competition here, David? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's the Mongolian was a silver medalist at the 2023 Worlds. The French was a 4-time world medalist who beat Mensa Stock back in the day. The Turk won the 2023 Worlds. And to be fair, she got thrown for 4 points in the Pan Am semi.
She did. It was a good move. I mean, you're going to get thrown once in a while when you compete that much.
It's not a criticism.
I know.
Simply an observation.
And what did she end up doing?
She ran her down, obviously. And she reminds me a lot of Snyder that way, right? She gets to her 2-on-1. She gets to her hook. She doesn't mind you just stepping out. She just goes forward. She may be the best example of trusting that if she gets in as many wrestling positions as possible, she's going to win the match.
Yeah.
And the analogy I always make is like if you pick the number one, like Scotty Scheffler's the number one golfer in the world right now. Like if I play him in 18 holes in anything, I have 0 chance of winning. Okay. But if I get to play him on one hole on my home golf course and I get to put the pin where we want and I pick the tee box and I know the time of day where the wind blows, I might win 1 out of 100. Okay, I'm not saying like maybe I still wouldn't, but there's the chance of winning goes higher because it's a one-off. He could just somehow blade one or something. You know, somebody could yell in his downswing. And the analogy to wrestling is if the worst wrestler can just stall it out and make it a shot clock match and then maybe get the second shot clock and now they're winning on criteria and now you have to go late and they can just defend and maybe go behind or whatever. That's how you win. And so I think she understands that. And like, listen, if I'm going to get behind, I'm going to get behind early, but we're going to wrestle hard the whole time. And the other part of that strategy is conditioning. The better your cardio is, the more you want to wrestle in a bunch of positions. The worse your cardio is, the more you want to stand around. So, all right. We may have to talk. I don't know if we're going to get to, I mean, this is not great time management. All right. 76, Kennedy Blades. The goal. Well,
we got a lot to talk about.
I know. Yuka Kagami from Japan is the favorite. And that's interesting because usually Japan is not favored in these higher heavyweight classes. But she was 2022 bronze, 2023 gold. She did wrestle Gray close. She wrestled 6-0 versus the Chinese wrestler, 5-2 versus the Cuban. So, but if you look at this track record, this is much different than any other weight class for Japan. They went working backwards, gold, bronze, 8th, 5th, silver, bronze, the last however many years. If you look at like the lightweights, it's like gold.
Yep.
So Blades, makes the team. She's beaten Skylar Grote, Diamond Guilford, Elena McCoy, and she beat Gray at the trials. It felt a little Aaron Brooks, David Taylor-ish, right? Somebody on the ascent towards her peak, somebody coming down the backside of the hill after an amazing career.
Yep.
Adeline's an absolute legend in our sport. We watched her lose at the U.S. Open, and then, she just came off being of delivering babies or having babies, and then bounce back. Blades is just so special, man, as an athlete. Like, she can get to legs. She's so tall. She's also super skilled, Mark. It's not like she's just an athlete. Like, and super high wrestling IQ as well.
I guess what I like best about hers, and there's another person we got to watch out at Detroit, Michigan, wrestling that the night before the Nationals started. They wrestled in that event, and Kennedy wrestled, and Izzy was there, and I was kind of watching him work with her, and he kept saying to her, no doubles till I tell you can hit one. So he was preparing her to wrestle in all different positions, and she did hit the double later on in the match and finish the match with it, but she's really good at different things, but she's got an unbelievable double leg. And I don't know if these women have ever seen her double before, and I think she can do really well here. Big difference.
There's no clear favorite here, right? And she will get drawn in. Okay, so that's part of it too, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's interesting, sorry, I'm clicking around here, is I think as Americans, we're going to try to spin this to support our athletes. So like Kyle Dake, Kyle Snyder, probably the two athletes, and Helen, like those, they've been around forever at a high level. It's like, well, hey, they're so good, it doesn't matter if you have film on them or not, right? And then like we'll go, well, hey, Spencer Lee and Aaron Brooks and Kennedy Blades, this is their first senior level world team. So, it's good. We have the advantage. Well, when they ask Brooks about it, Brooks and Spencer Lee, they're like, look, we've wrestled a lot of these guys. Like, you grow up at the same age, right? Like, if you're 14 and I'm 14, we probably wrestled in Tulsa at 10, 11, and 12, or, maybe different, you grew one year and I didn't kind of thing. But, and the other thing is, people are so good at watching film. Now, I do think there's certain athletes that you got to feel them one time. Like, I think Spencer's uniquely strong and weird, like uniquely functionally strong. So,
But I think Alora's also a lot like that. Also, she's
right.
Just so physically strong, and it's just the pressure she puts on people is just amazing. How she can continue to do it, and she breaks them.
Yeah, and even stronger coming down 4 kilos.
Yep.
So, I think that'll be interesting. So, USA Wrestling article here on Kamal. So, last man in, 77 kgs. So, let's see if we can get to the seeds here. So, you can either, I'm not going to try to read all these names, but obviously Kamal's going to get drawn in. So, I did a match chat with Kamal, which hopefully is going to go up sometime soon. I know Gary's got so many plates in the air, but it was interesting. He said, I'm one of the 5 best hand fighters and pummelers in the world. And he goes, and I think I'm the best guy in the world on top at this weight class. So then the logical question is, how do you get on top? Right? Like, if you think you can lift everybody, then you just got to get there at least once, right? And Greco is probably the ultimate sport where if I'm really good at defense, besides activity points, like there's no shot clock in Greco. They just decide who's being passive and they put that person down. Yep. And the other person gets a point. You can wrestle a whole match basically on your feet besides those circumstances. Because like, even if you take me down, you might take me down out of bounds, or it might be a step out. So I think for Kamal, he's just got to be committed to being willing to get tired, like really tired. And it's a short tournament. He doesn't have to pace himself. I think there's optimism for that because he came through. I hope the podcast goes up with him soon because his attitude about coming through the backside at that last chance tournament, I've known Kamal a long time, and it was a much more mature attitude than maybe he would have had 5 years ago. And that's fine. That's how it should be. You should grow. I saw a post the other day on social media is like, hey, you're allowed to grow and people should stop punishing you for your past. And I think like that's a fair sentence in life, right? Like,
Yep.
you know, you make mistakes, you own them. All of us have at least one thing that we're not super proud of, a bad decision we made in our life. And this isn't anything like that. I just think he is if he's willing to get tired and he can stay explosive when he's tired, like Greco is such a sudden sport, Mark. Like, you know, you just get to the body one time and it can be 4 or 5 over the top. And then the person's got a trap arm gut. If people, they got a trap and they can just go 2 or 3 gut wrenches and either win the match or put it on ice where you got to run them down. So, I mean, but he's not a favorite to medal.
No, but he's fun to watch when he wants to wrestle. But at the last chance, when he was in all the way through that wrestlebacks, David, he was after people. He controlled the center of the mat. He kept going. Then he got down to that final match that's going to put him in the Olympics, and he didn't do those things he was doing previously. Now, maybe that's because of the competition he was wrestling, but he didn't control the center of the mat, so he didn't get the opportunity in parterre on top to get his lift, and he's going to have to do that here if he's got any chance at medaling.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think that you're right. Like he's just got to be willing to commit to it, right?
Yep.
So at 87, Peyton Jacobson is our guy, again, drawn into the field. And here's what was interesting about Greco, Mark, at the Olympic trials. The last 3 weights, the athlete that qualified the weight class didn't win. So it was Spencer Woods, Alan Vera, Colton Schultz. And we just had Spencer Woods in the Beat the Streets New England event, and super nice guy. Super explosive too. Him and Benji Peak had like a 23-15 match that was freaking awesome. The kids were asking to be belly to back thrown on the stage afterwards. It was like freaking great for Greco, like so cool. Yeah. But Jacobson is a pretty significant underdog. Hopefully he approaches the sport the meet like I got nothing to lose and I'm going to go get it, as opposed to having any sort of hesitation. And hopefully if he loses, he gets drawn through. But he would be a massive story if he were to medal. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Sure.
Joe Rao at 97. So, I mean, just again, and I don't want to get into it because there was controversy, but he just has had an immensely long path to get here.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's up there at Illinois with Medlin and the Bronagles. And, you know, Medlin's probably the best guy in the world at finding secret film on people. Like, he's a guy that if the brackets were out ahead of time, I think it would favor us the most because he'll do the most research and have very specific game plans. You know, I think Rao wrestles sort of a European style, and it's different at those upper weights. There's not as many lifts. Like 200-pound guys are not lifting 200-pound guys as much as they're gut wrenching them.
Yep.
Or low amplitude reverse lifts, or come out front and front headlock pinches or chest wraps from parterre. It's a much different sport at that weight, those last 2 weight classes for sure. Kind of the last 2.5 is where it kind of transitions over. I'm just super happy for Rao that he got through. So, but again, I think he's somebody like Jacobson that hopefully we'll just let it rip, man. I mean, and I feel so happy for him. And I don't think this will happen, but you just, here's the one good thing about the opening ceremonies and wrestling being so far apart, the start, that I think, like if wrestling was the next day, maybe not Joe, but somebody in general could be caught up with, I'm just so happy to be here.
Sure.
And now it's like, nah, we got a week to lock in, dude. Like, you can change your life forever. You can be on a Wheaties box if you can run the gauntlet. It's going to be super hard, but if anybody can do it, you can do it, kind of thing. So, and then Adam Kuhn, who several years ago medaled, made the finals, had probably the best draw anybody could ever get when he did that. That was, before the seating was the same, but still did it. And then there was talks he was going to go to the NFL. Then he came back. Schultz had beaten him for years. And then Schultz didn't look like himself at the Olympic trials. I'm not trying to take anything away from Adam Kuhn. He won the matches. There were no controversial calls. And Kuhn's, I remember watching Kuhn in cadets. And he was just like murdering people. Like literally just murdering people, And you're like, my God, this kid is going to be absolutely special, So, but again, we'll get drawn in. I mean, that's the whole thing when somebody upsets somebody like Brooks and Taylor, right? Like Taylor had all the points. Like Adeline probably would have had seeding points.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. And then there's other people like Zane and Amit that go up or down weight classes, from non-Olympic weights. So they weren't going to be seeded no matter what. But, like I think in Zane's case, I don't think Nick Lee would have had points. I know he wouldn't have. And I don't, Forrest wouldn't have had points for seeding. So sometimes it doesn't matter. But in general, seeding points makes your path easier. It's so hard to do seeding correctly when some of these people never wrestle each other.
Sure.
It's not like the state of Iowa in class 3A or something, or Missouri in class 4, where there's 60 schools and there's going to be common opponents one way or the other. Like everybody wrestles each other in the 4 districts, and then there's crossover, and you can connect the dots. Like Mark beat Billy, who beat David, who beat Grant. Okay, well, unless there's any other data points to compromise that, though, that's the order, and we slot other people in, above or below. So, okay, we did okay on that timing wise. Just so people know, we are well aware of what's going on in the NCAA with the roster caps, scholarship bumps. I will just say this, we will get to that, Mark, for sure. We probably will not get to it for 3 weeks. Maybe next week, because we'll only have a couple days. Maybe it'll be a week.
Yeah.
It'll depend. So
we can we'll at least touch on it a little bit, give some thoughts, concerns, question marks, because there are a lot of question marks out there floating around with the Power 5 conferences doing this. You have to basically jump into it, or, it's different. I mean, there's a lot to go through. So
I will say this. Number one, it's super important to understand that these rules were not made for wrestling. These rules were made for football and basketball.
Yep.
And wrestling and lacrosse and soccer and every other sport that's an Olympic sport that loses money are just in this. It's a trickle down. And the second thing is this, like you and I talked off air about this. It helps to understand economics, because these are ultimately going to be economic decisions for the schools. Like this is all based on the NIL ruling, that there's a big lawsuit where the NCAA owes people from the past a truckload of money, and they're trying to figure out where the revenue is going to come from to pay it. And it's basically a split between the revenue from the basketball contract, and other schools are just going to have to come up with it. And it'll be interesting to see. Like, we'll probably deep dive this. It might be pieces of it, like week by week. Okay. But we will. So we are recording on August 1st, which is Thursday morning, which is when we normally record. We'll send this to Gary, and I think Paris is 6 hours ahead of us, maybe 7. So hopefully he has time to put this up before next week. But next week, the Olympics schedule is posted kind of everywhere. Okay, like if you're a social media person, if not, go to themat.com, go to any of the other sources, and they're up there, and people are tweeting it, like the schedule, not only, but each weight class each day, and then who the American is in that weight class. So we start out with Allure and Kuhn. Okay, just so people know. So it's and the first day is interesting because it's just front side, and then it's overlap where like the second day is the front side of the next 2 weights, and then the back sides of the first 2 weights.
Yep.
So hopefully there's a lot of coverage just in general. Hopefully there's good storylines, even if they're not all American, that make people want to watch, help grow the sport. This is an absolutely critical time of the year for USA Wrestling. Like medals equate to dollars from the US OEC, I believe. So that's just a guess. That's not an opinion. So I'm not saying that for sure, but the success of USA Wrestling, I feel like this is the one time in the world where like you're an Iowa guy, so you're going to root for Spencer Lee, but like let's say as an Iowa guy you don't necessarily like Penn State, you're still going to root for Aaron Brooks. You know, and I'm not saying you don't like Penn State, but it's like, hey, everybody's wearing red, white, and blue. Everybody's wearing Nike. Everybody's wearing Grant stuff. Okay, so it's a very cool time to watch. I had somebody text me like, what are you gonna, that doesn't know me very well, like, what are you watching next week? I'm like, Olympics, wrestling. That's like literally. And the only thing is like, I like watching the replays. What kind of stinks about it is you either got to get up at 5 a.m. or you know what happened. One of the cool things about watching great wrestling matches is you don't know who's going to win.
Yep.
So, like if you beat me 9-8, it's probably worth watching because like, well, how'd they get there? But like if you beat me 10-0, like sometimes you just don't watch it because you're like, well, okay, like Mark kicked the crud out of it. So, all right, so we're going to end this, and then Mark and I are going to submit our Olympic picks for the journalist contest. So Mark, I did crush you in this contest for the NCAA. Like I was second by 1 point out of like 30 journalists, and you were not on the board.
I'm not 100% sure, David, about that. I think I helped you pick your team, by the way.
Not at all.
No, okay, just second. Thought maybe I did.
No, you did. I'm just joking with you.
Okay.
But we lost.
I didn't put my own team in because I figured I had helped you do yours.
No, we were 1 point out of it.
We got second.
We got second. So, but Gary was kind enough to send it collectively to all of us. Specifically said, make sure Mark and GT get their teams in. Feel like we could do 2 teams and Grant will probably still beat us.
Well, you have $20 bet on Grant, and so I mean that's what I'd heard. I saw it somewhere.
No, I am betting on Grant. Like this is his wheelhouse.
I think you're wrong this year.
We're gonna win, or you're gonna win?
I think I'm gonna win over Grant.
Okay.
Grant's awful busy doing other things right now, so I don't know if he's got his head into wrestling.
I think the way you beat Grant is if Grant doesn't turn a team in. So,
all right, we'll see.
All right. Mark, do not hang up. We're going to do our picks. Everybody else, thank you for watching and listening. We will speak to you all next week.